Salam, peace be upon you. My name is Muhammad Layak Siddiqui, the father of Holophase, part 45. Recursive self-modeling, when a phi pattern turns its patterning toward itself. We began with one insight. Pattern is primary. Phi is circular comparability, the root permission for distinction. Only relations are public. Identity is invariance under lawful transformation. Persistence is certified survival through change. Interaction is joint constraint. Time is ordered transformation. No ex nihilo. Every appearance has provenance. The observer is a pattern within pattern reality. Measurement produces traces. Memory stabilizes them. Models compress structure. Prediction narrows lawful futures. Learning updates structure while preserving identity. Intervention alters coupling. Computation transforms patterns under rules. Information is constrained on possibility. Publicness makes knowledge shareable. Scale determines what becomes visible. Coarse graining moves between scales with declared loss. Emergence reveals new patterns at new scales. Now we ask, what happens when patterns turn toward themselves? The turning point. We have traveled far together. We have seen how patterns emerge, persist, transform, and interact. We have watched observers measure, models predict, learners update, interveners steer. We have understood emergence as new patterns becoming visible at new scales. Now we encounter a particularly powerful phenomenon. A pattern may not only represent something outside itself, a pattern may represent its own process. When this happens, pattern structure bends inward. A system builds an internal representation of its own state, its own activity, and sometimes even the way it constructs those representations. This inward turn is called recursive self-modeling, and it marks one of the most important structural thresholds in the entire landscape of pattern science. What recursive self-modeling means. Recursive self-modeling occurs when a phi-pattern system constructs and updates an internal pattern of its own patterning process. The system forms a representation of itself. It uses that representation to guide its behavior. Then it updates that representation based on the consequences of its actions. The cycle repeats. In simple words, the pattern models itself while it changes. This process does not escape the laws we have established. It remains governed by the same principles of pattern stability, trace generation, memory, and transformation. Self-reference is not a supernatural break in reality. It is a lawful configuration of pattern dynamics. A simple, everyday example, the mirror. Stand before a mirror. You see an image of yourself. The mirror reflects your appearance. Now think about what is happening. You are looking at a representation of yourself. That representation is a pattern. Light reflected, captured by your eyes, processed by your brain. But you can do more than look in a mirror. You can think about yourself. You can reflect on your own thoughts. You can consider your own motives, your own history, your own future. This is self-modeling. Your brain constructs internal patterns that represent aspects of yourself, your body, your emotions, your beliefs, your ongoing mental processes. The mirror is a simple external self-model. Your thoughts are a more complex internal self-model. Neither is magic. Both are pattern phenomena. Another example, carrying hot tea. Imagine carrying a cup of hot tea across a room. While walking, we are not only observing the room around us, we are also sensing our own movement. We feel the tilt of our hand, the speed of our steps, the balance of our body. If the cup begins to tilt, we correct it. To do this, the brain must carry an internal estimate of our own motion. That estimate is a self-model. Without it, the tea would spill. This small everyday act demonstrates the essence of recursive self-modeling, a pattern observing and adjusting its own behavior while it unfolds. Three levels of modeling. To understand recursion clearly, we must distinguish three levels of modeling. Modeling another pattern. The first level is modeling something external. A bird models the location of a branch before landing. A driver models traffic conditions ahead. A scientist models climate systems. Here, the representation concerns something outside the system. Modeling one's own state. The second level is modeling one's own internal condition. A runner monitors fatigue. A pilot checks instrument readings about the aircraft's state. A computer monitors processor temperature. The system builds an internal representation of its own state. Modeling one's own modeling. The third level is deeper still. The system begins to model the way it models. Humans often experience this as thinking about how we think. A student might notice that rereading notes is not helping, so they change study strategy. This is metacognition, modeling the modeling process. Each level adds recursive depth. Each is lawful. Each has its own risks and requirements. 6. The recursive loop. Recursive self-modeling forms a repeating cycle. A system acts. The action produces traces. The traces update the internal self-model. The revised model guides the next action. Then the process repeats. In symbolic form, we could describe the loop like this. Next self-model equals update, current self-model completely onboarding. Then the next model update equals next self-model update current self-model. In the other, we could describe the loop like this. Next self-model equals update current self-model before the next level like this. The 6, the recursive loop. Recursive self-model equals update current self-model. Update self-model plus new traces. The equation is simple, but the idea is powerful. The system continuously compares expectation with reality and modifies its own internal description. 7. 4 core capabilities. Once a system carries a self-model, several important abilities appear. Self-monitoring. The system tracks its own state. A thermostat monitors temperature. A human monitors fatigue. A computer monitors memory usage. Self-monitoring means the system maintains an estimate of itself. Self-prediction. The system anticipates its own future states. A chess program forecasts its own search path. A person predicts that lack of sleep will reduce tomorrow's focus. Self-prediction allows preparation. Self-update. The internal self-model changes when new evidence appears. A runner adjusts training after noticing exhaustion. A scientist revises a theory after unexpected results. The model evolves. Self-correction. The system uses the model to steer itself towards stability. A pilot corrects course drift. A musician adjusts pitch after hearing a mistake. Self-correction turns knowledge of the self into action. These functions are not magical. They are pattern dynamics operating recursively. Memory, the anchor of recursion. Recursive self-modeling requires memory. A system must store traces of previous states in order to compare past and present. Without memory, self-reference collapses. A body remembers fatigue from previous runs. A machine stores calibration errors. An immune system remembers past infections. Memory provides continuity across time. Learning and model revision. Learning strengthens recursive systems. When the system detects a mismatch between expectation and outcome, the self-model changes. A student learns which methods work best. A business learns which strategies fail. A robot learns how to improve navigation. Each update improves the usefulness of the internal model, yet the model remains incomplete. The windowed nature of self-knowledge. Just as observers see the world through windows, systems see themselves through windows. Self-knowledge is always partial. Humans cannot directly observe every neural process inside the brain. Machines cannot perfectly track every internal state. Organizations cannot fully understand every aspect of their operation. Self-models therefore contain blind spots. Perfect self-knowledge is impossible. An example, the blind spot. Everyone has blind spots, aspects of themselves they cannot see. No matter how much you self-reflect, there are patterns in your own behavior that others see more clearly than you do. This is not a failure. It is a consequence of finite access. Your self-model is partial. It always will be. Recursion risks. Recursive systems face several dangers. Runaway loops. A system may become trapped in endless self-analysis. Humans experience this as overthinking. The anxious person worries about their own worrying, which makes them more anxious, which makes them worry more. A runaway loop. Self-distortion. The self-model may become inaccurate. A person may misjudge their abilities. An organization may misjudge its strengths. The act of modeling can change what is being modeled, creating self-fulfilling prophecies. Fragmentation. Different parts of the system may carry incompatible self-models. This often happens in complex institutions. A person may have conflicting self-conceptions. I am capable and I am helpless, leading to internal inconsistency. Infinite regress. Recursive modeling can theoretically continue forever. What models the meta-model? The question can chase itself without end. Real systems therefore limit depth. Computational intractability. Detailed self-models require resources. Time, memory, and energy place strict limits on recursion. Too much recursion slows action and can exhaust the system. These are not failures of the framework. They are real phenomena that must be tracked. An example, the anxious mind. An anxious person worries about their own worrying. They think about their anxiety, which makes them more anxious, which makes them think more about their anxiety. A runaway loop. They develop a self-model that says, I am an anxious person. This model shapes their behavior, confirming itself. Self-distortion. They may have conflicting self-models. I am capable and I am helpless, leading to fragmentation. They may try to understand why they are anxious, then why they are thinking about why they are anxious, then why they are thinking about why they are thinking. Infinite regress. The recursion consumes mental energy, leaving less for other tasks. Intractability. These are not signs that anxiety is unreal or that self-modeling is impossible. They are signs that recursion has risks. Resource limits and bounded depth. Because recursion consumes resources, every real system must restrict its depth. Humans can reflect on their thinking, but only for a limited number of levels. Machines face similar constraints. Too much recursion slows action. Bounded recursion keeps systems functional. Number self-modeling across scales. Recursive self-modeling appears throughout nature. Cells regulate internal chemistry. Animals track body orientation and hunger. Humans reflect on thoughts and intentions. Organizations monitor performance. Computers run diagnostic routines. Across scales, the same structure appears. A system constructs a representation of itself and uses it to guide behavior. 16. Identity in recursive systems. Recursive systems change continuously, yet identity persists. A person grows and learns but remains the same individual. An organization evolves yet retains continuity. Identity persists because certain invariants survive through updates. These invariants form the stable core of the system. 17. The threshold to higher cognition. Recursive self-modeling creates conditions for advanced cognition. Often arises when systems interpret their own actions. Agency appears when systems evaluate alternative futures. Self-awareness emerges when the self-model includes the system itself as a participant in the environment. But self-modeling alone does not explain these phenomena. It provides the structural foundation on which they may develop. Recursive self-modeling is the threshold. Crossing it opens new possibilities, but crossing it also brings new risks. An example, the young child. A young child develops the capacity for self-recognition. They see themselves in a mirror and know it is them. This is a basic form of self-modeling. Later, they develop a sense of their own preferences, their own history, their own identity. They can tell you about themselves. Later still, they reflect on their own character, their own choices, their own future. They ask, who am I and what do I want to become? Each stage is deeper recursion. Each builds on the last. Each is a pattern phenomenon. 19. The self-modeling principle. Now we can state the principle that organizes part 45. Self-reference is a lawful phi pattern possibility. Patterns can model and transform themselves while remaining within the same foundational grammar. This means self-modeling is not magic, it is pattern activity. Self-modeling has levels: other, self, meta. Self-modeling enables self-monitoring, self-prediction, self-update, self-correction. Self-modeling carries stability risks: runaway loops, self-distortion, fragmentation, infinite regress, intractability. Self-modeling remains windowed. Self-knowledge is always partial. Self-modeling is the threshold to higher cognition, but does not by itself explain consciousness or meaning. 20. The rigor layer, the self-modeling gate. Recursive self-modeling gets its own gate, the self-modeling gate. The self-modeling gate asks, is the self-model type declared? Is it modeling state, process, or modeling itself? Is the recursive depth specified? How many levels of recursion are involved? Are stability bounds declared? What prevents runaway loops? Are window limits acknowledged? What aspects of self are inaccessible? Are resource constraints accounted for? What limits time, memory, energy? Is identity preservation addressed? Does the system remain itself through recursion? Are recursion risks tracked? Runaway, self-distortion, fragmentation, regress, intractability? If the answer is no, if recursion depth is hidden, if stability bounds are missing, if window limits are ignored, the self-modeling claim cannot be certified. The self-modeling gate requires self-model type, state, process, meta. Recursive depth, how many levels? Stability bounds, safeguards against runaway. Window limits, what cannot be accessed? Resource constraints, time, memory, energy bounds. Identity preservation, continuity through recursion. Risk accounting, tracking of recursion dangers. Additional gates. Several related gates reinforce this discipline. The self-model gate ensures that the self-model is properly distinguished from other models. The meta-level gate verifies that metacognitive claims are appropriately scoped. The windowed self-knowledge gate ensures that self-knowledge is not claimed to be complete. The runaway intractability gate checks that recursion risks are addressed. The resource gate ensures that resource bounds are declared. The identity preservation gate verifies that the system remains itself through recursion. Firewalls. What self-modeling discipline blocks? Self-modeling discipline installs several critical firewalls. Firewall 1. No treating self-modeling as escape from pattern law. Self-modeling is pattern activity, not a way out of reality. Firewall 2. No ignoring stability risks. Recursion is dangerous. Risks must be tracked. Firewall 3. No pretending self-knowledge is complete. Self-models are partial, windowed, limited. Firewall 4. No conflating self-modeling with consciousness explanation. Self-modeling is substrate, not full account. Firewall 5. No hiding recursive loops. Recursion must be declared, not hidden. Firewall 6. No unlimited recursion assumptions. Recursion depth has costs and limits. Firewall 7. No agency as magic leaps. Self-modeling enables agency but does not magically create it. Firewall 8. No smuggling semantic meaning into self-modeling without later parts. Meaning comes later, part 46. These firewalls keep self-modeling honest. 23. Refusal conditions. We refuse to certify a self-modeling claim if self-model type is undeclared, recursive depth is unspecified, stability bounds are missing, window limits are ignored, resource constraints are unacknowledged, identity preservation is not addressed, recursion risks are hidden. Self-modeling is treated as complete self-knowledge. Self-modeling is conflated with consciousness without justification. Refusal here is not pedantry, it is protecting the integrity of recursion. Why this matters beyond science. Self-knowledge in life. Recursive self-modeling is not only for science, it is for how we understand ourselves. Each of us engages in self-modeling constantly. We monitor our own thoughts, feelings, actions. We predict how we will respond to situations. We update our self-concepts based on experience. We correct our own errors. But we also face the risks of recursion. We can get caught in loops of self-doubt. We can distort ourselves through biased self-perception. We can fragment into conflicting self-narratives. We can chase infinite regress of self-analysis. We can exhaust ourselves mentally. Understanding self-modeling as a pattern phenomenon helps us navigate these risks. It reminds us that self-knowledge is always partial. It encourages us to track our own recursion, to notice when we are spiraling, to maintain stability through grounding in external feedback. Self-modeling is how we become self-aware. But self-awareness is not a destination. It is an ongoing process, with all the risks and rewards that recursion brings. A final image, the serpent Ouroboros. The ancient symbol of the serpent eating its own tail represents self-reference, recursion, the cycle of self-reflection. The serpent is a pattern that turns toward itself. It consumes itself, sustains itself, renews itself. This is recursive self-modeling. The pattern that models itself is both subject and object, both eater and eaten. The symbol reminds us that self-reference is ancient, powerful, and dangerous. The serpent can maintain itself in a stable loop, or it can consume itself entirely. Self-modeling requires balance. Too little and the system never knows itself. Too much and it spirals into instability. The serpent's wisdom is to find the middle path. Closing insight. We began with comparability. From phi emerged distinction. From distinction emerged pattern. From pattern emerged identity, persistence, interaction, measurement, memory, modeling, prediction, learning, intervention, computation, information, publicness, scale, coarse graining, emergence. And now, recursive self modeling. Recursive self modeling is the pattern turning toward itself. It is self reference within law, not outside it. It enables self monitoring, self prediction, self update, self correction. It carries risks of runaway, distortion, fragmentation, regress, intractability. It remains windowed, partial, bounded. It is the threshold to higher cognition, but it does not by itself explain consciousness or meaning. It is the pattern substrate on which they may be built. We now move forward. With self modeling understood, we can ask, what happens when patterns become useful to other patterns? When one pattern's structure constrains another's possibilities in ways that matter for its functioning? That is meaning. That is part 46. Always, peace be upon you.